Hi there, I'm Vincent Boss and I provide dating and self-improvement advice. And in today's podcast, we're going to be discussing inside your ex's mind during no contact. I provide audio coaching for breakup recovery, trying to get an ex back, attracting someone new, and life coaching. Visit www.dateme.tips for more details. Please check your spam and junk folders if you are expecting an email from me. So now let's get back into today's podcast. And today we are discussing inside your ex's mind during no contact. So if you have been dumped and want to try to get your ex back, then I suggest you implement my version of the no contact rule. But what happens when you go no contact? In today's podcast, I'll be discussing 3 of the inner workings of your ex's mind when you go no contact. So let's get straight into this, and point number 1 is feelings of neglect and exclusion. So a question you might instantly ask is, if my ex dumped me, why would they be bothered if I'm not contacting them? Surely this is the outcome that they want. Well, the truth is that your ex doesn't want you to contact them, but they do expect you to, at least subconsciously. And because they expect you to, it will affect their mindset if you don't. When someone doesn't receive contact from others, they may experience a range of negative emotions associated with feeling neglected and excluded. Humans have an inherent need for social connection and belonging, and when that need is not met, it can be very disheartening. The absence of contact can lead individuals to feel as though they are not valued or important to those around them. And this is crucial if you're a dumpee and you're trying to reattract your ex, because you need to be aligning the scales of value. Because at the time of a breakup, your ex, the dumper, is going to be feeling, at least subconsciously, as the person with more value or more power, because they made the decision and you didn't. This isn't necessarily something they're consciously thinking, but subconsciously, the dumper is somebody who has additional value, and the dumpee didn't get what they wanted, and unfortunately that means they have less value, they have less power in the situation. So that's why it's important in the realms of reconnection that the dumper needs to feel as though their value is of level pegging with the dumpee. So if the dumper gets to the point where they're starting to feel that they aren't valued by their dumpee, this is going to naturally bring the scales of value more into alignment. Now, please don't get this confused. This isn't about being disrespectful to one another. This isn't about trying to make people feel awful or whatnot. This is a subconscious situation where if you go no contact, your ex-dumper is going to feel within themselves that you don't value them. You don't see them as an important person that you're going to be relying on. And that should absolutely be the case, because as a dumpee, you have been dumped. You are now single. You should not be chasing your ex. So there is nothing wrong with this, but it is what is going on in the back of your ex's mind. They're starting to feel that you don't value them in the same way, and therefore you must be a more valuable individual because you don't need them. That is what's going on in your ex's subconscious. So this can result in a sense of being left out or disregarded, which can be emotionally distressing and impact their self-esteem. Now again, we're not trying to be horrible when we're saying this. You've got to remember that you are the dumpee. You've been dumped. Your journey is now to move forward on your own path. So you can't be blaming yourself if your ex-dumper is starting to feel in the back of their mind like their self-esteem is dropping a bit because you're not pushing them on a pedestal. If they're starting to feel a little worried, a little distressed within themselves, this is nothing for you to worry about, because you are just living your life the way that they wanted you to at the time. You know, they ended the relationship, and if they end a relationship, they can't be expecting you to chase them. And ironically enough, even though they expect you to reaffirm their value, they don't want you to. If you started contacting your ex, if you started chasing them, not only are you going to reaffirm their value and put them on that pedestal, but they're going to get frustrated. So there's no point whatsoever in chasing your ex. It's going to result in a very low possibility of you reconnecting in this way. So feelings of neglect and exclusion can evoke a variety of emotions, such as sadness, disappointment, and frustration. Individuals may question their worth and wonder why they are not being contacted, whereas, as I've just said, Deep down, they don't want to be contacted, but subconsciously, they're expecting it. And this can lead to self-doubt. Self-doubt about their own worth suggests that they are not happy going on their journey without you by their side. And as a dumpee, this is what you need to happen. You need your ex to miss you, and they can't miss you if you are always around them. The longer the absence of contact persists, the stronger these feelings may become. And this is why I believe that from my research, the average amount of time it takes a dumper to reach out to a dumpee is in and around about 6 months. Now, some people will receive contact sooner, some will receive it later, and unfortunately some never will. But, as I've just said, the longer the absence of contact persists, the stronger these feelings may become. So the longer the absence, the longer you go no contact, the stronger the feelings of feeling unsure about themselves are likely to grow. And that is why implementing my version of a no contact rule is a marathon, generally speaking, and not a sprint. So now let's get into point number 2 and the second point of today's podcast about inside your ex's mind during no contact. And point number 2 is emotional distress and insecurity. So not being contacted can generate emotional distress and contribute to feelings of insecurity. Now, as a dumpee, you don't need to be told this because you're going through this right now. You know, your ex-dumper has probably not spoke to you for many months, if not even years. Okay, some of you might be listening and you've been broken up with a few days or weeks, but generally speaking, unfortunately, you are likely to not hear from your ex for many months. A lot of you, this is going to be, as I've just said, a marathon rather than a sprint. So not being in contact can generate the emotional distress, and therefore, when somebody is not receiving contact, they may start to question their own likability, attractiveness, or ability to maintain meaningful relationships. Again, this all ties in to what you as a dumpee need your ex to be experiencing if you have any hope of reconnecting. It's not about being horrible, you're not being cruel, you are just doing what they said. They said, I don't want to be with you, you are living your life. The only thing you aren't doing is reaffirming their value that their subconscious expects you to do. They don't want you to do this consciously. So, like I said, don't worry about it. But this is what is likely to happen if you don't contact your ex, if you implement my version of no contact rule. And if you want support with my version of a no contact rule, if you want support moving through your breakup recovery or enhancing and increasing the chance of one day getting your ex back, then you may want to consider my audio coaching service, where me and you can speak one-on-one about your specific unique situation. Go to my website www.dateme.tips for more information about how I can become your coach and your teammate via my audio coaching service. So the lack of contact can amplify existing insecurities and vulnerabilities within somebody, making individuals more prone to negative self-talk and self-criticism. It can also foster a sense of uncertainty and instability as they may struggle to understand why they are not being contacted. So again, without me sounding like a broken record, this might sound kind of harsh, but this is not what you were doing to them. They're experiencing this themselves because they decided to end the relationship and you are not reaffirming their value. So try not to worry about all of this, no matter how harsh it kind of sounds, okay? So now let's get into point number 3 and the final point of today's podcast about inside your ex's mind during no contact. And point number 3 is loneliness and isolation. So human beings are social creatures, and the absence of contact can result in profound feelings of loneliness and isolation. Regular social interaction is vital for maintaining emotional well-being and a sense of connectiveness. When somebody is not being contacted, they may feel a sense of being left out or forgotten, leading to a deep sense of loneliness. And this is something as a dumpee that I'm sure you really can appreciate because you're likely going through this yourself. So you can imagine what could be happening to your dumper into the future. So loneliness can be distressing and isolating. It can contribute to a range of negative emotions, including sadness, emptiness, and longing for social connection. Prolonged loneliness can have detrimental effects on mental health, increasing the risk of anxiety. The longer the absence of contact persists, the more profound these feelings of loneliness and isolation can become. And this is why, when I'm talking to you as a dumpee, I always suggest joining new classes, groups and clubs. You've got to get out there, you've got to live your life, you've got to make new connections. You've got to Go out with your friends, because I'm pretty sure when they invite you places, you don't want to. They're asking you to do things with them and you just say, no, I'd rather stay at home. You need to spend time with people, because you're listening to this about what might be going through your ex's mind one day in the future, but you are likely going through this now. So you really need to make sure that you are getting enough social interaction. So please make sure you spend time with your friends, you spend time with your family, and you make new connections. You need to be making sure you join new classes, groups, and clubs, meeting new people. This is how you can get through this difficult journey. And if you don't get your ex back, because unfortunately not everybody will, you can and will find somebody even better. If you go through self-improvement, if you become a better person today than you were yesterday, a better person tomorrow than you are currently today, and you're mixing with new people. Self-improvement is fine, it's great, it's wonderful, but if you're not mixing with new people, who gets to see the version 2.0 of yourself? You're putting in all this hard work, all this effort, but you need to be mixing with new people so you can showcase yourself as the best version that you can be. It's so important that you live your life to the full. And listening to today's podcast, listening to what your ex-dumper may go through in the future, is probably like holding a mirror up right now to you, because you're probably thinking, well, I'm actually going through this now. And that is because the dumpee and dumper journey are very much similar at just different timelines. A dumper will go through a lot of what a dumpee experiences at a different stage, of course from a slightly different perspective, but still, as you can hear right now, you can see the similarities. It's important to note that the depth and intensity of the effects that I've described in today can vary from person to person. Some individuals may be more resilient and able to cope with a lack of contact, while others may be more susceptible to the impact. Additionally, the duration and frequency of the absence of contact play a role in shaping the depth of these effects. And this goes back again to me saying that the average amount of time that I've seen that a dumper reaches out to a dumpee is around 6 months. This is a long game. I can't guarantee you'll get your ex back, but what I can say is that if you do, it's likely to be well off into the future by the time you've fully connected. Now, I'm not here to say that you can't get your ex back quickly, but you would be in the minority of instances if you do. Now, if you say, well, I got back with my ex almost instantaneously, we was barely apart, I would suggest that the dust probably hadn't even really settled, and maybe the situation that you had, you was able to resolve your breakup scenario before it was actually finalised. Because generally speaking, if the dust has settled, if a breakup has been finalised, then the journey is going to be persisting from that point. So please don't be scared, don't be fearful, don't be thinking I've not heard from my ex in 3 weeks. Will I ever hear from them again? I speak with people all of the time who hear from their ex after much longer than the description I've just given. I've just said the average amount of time is 6 months, but I have spoke to one of my audio coaching clients only a few days ago, and when we were speaking, I found out that they heard from their ex after more than a year of no contact. Okay, so that's well over the average, but it's double the amount of time. I would say that once you go beyond a year, your chances of success will start to decrease. But it doesn't mean that your ex definitely can't come back after that point. Like I've just said, one of my audio coaching clients has heard from her ex after more than a year. And it wasn't that long ago that I spoke to another one of my audio coaching clients, and they were telling me how their ex-dumper reached out after more than 15 months. So that's just 2 examples of well over the average. And what we can see here is, although it is possible, then you've got to realise that it is also a long time. So although I'm never going to say never, I would say you need to be focusing on your own journey, because we can't guarantee your ex will ever come back. And if they do, it could be a very long time, and therefore you need to be making sure you live every day to the full. Now, if you've been listening all the way through today's podcast, you will see that your ex-dumper is going to be going through a whole range of emotions which are quite similar to what you're experiencing. And this is why I wanted to speak about inside your ex's mind during no contact. And it is important you implement my version of a no contact rule, because this isn't based on some of the other versions that you might find online. So please check out the playlist to fully immerse yourself in my variety. If you believe that this podcast has helped you, then please consider buying me a coffee. The link to do so is in the description.